Hello, beautiful human. Welcome back to the Unstoppable You podcast. How are you, my loves? It's so good to be here with you all. Feels like it's been a little while, really not that long, but perhaps I just lived many days and weeks in the last little while in a good way. But it's so good to be back. How are you, my loves? Thank you so much for joining me for today's juicy podcast episode. And if you're watching over on YouTube, hi, welcome. I am Evie, life and confidence coach and business mentor, and I'm really excited for today's episode because we are almost at the end of the year. And so this one is all about how to essentially make the most of this year, how to get like the secret to winning this year, the end of this year, and to also support yourself to start the next year, 2025, really strong, feeling really grounded, empowered, and aligned. So I'm really excited for this episode. As always, we're at this time of year where we're sharing reflections, goal setting, how to make the most of this. And I always love this time of year in many, many ways. So more on that to come. Firstly, I want to share my quote for today. And do you know what? I've realized there's been a couple of episodes that I've done, solo episodes, where I've missed a quote and no one caught me out on it. You guys need to hold me accountable here, guys. So if you ever notice me forgetting to do a quote, please message me, send me a DM, comment, send me a message. I would love to. I would love that loving reminder and nod from you. So I've written down some quotes for today. It's actually something that I saw a while back, and it was one of those things where I was like, oh, that was really cool. And I wrote down and I sent myself an email. Sometimes I send myself emails if it's something to do with my business or could be an idea to share with someone or a piece of content, whatever. Anything that kind of sparks something for me, I normally email it to myself. Anyway, I've written it on a post-it note here and I really liked it personally, but I thought, actually, this is really fitting for today's podcast episode. Okay, so today's quote is this: if you want something to be different, you have to be different. So if you want something to be different, you have to be different. You have to be different. I think that's a really, like sometimes a hard-hitting one, but a really good truth and something to really like consider. Oh, cool. Okay, so I'm wishing or wanting something to be different, but actually maybe I need to be different. So if I'm wanting something to be different in my life, then maybe I need to show up for this. And how can you take that empowered action towards that? Or how can you really start to be, honest with yourself, really honest with yourself about the way that you're showing up, or, the version of yourself that you are at the moment? And is there, if you're wanting something more for yourself or something to be different, then how can I be different? How can I start to do that internal thing, that internal work or stuff that's going to support me to have that external thing that I'm really wanting to be different? I think there's also another quote that I think is really important to share here, which goes with this idea as well, which kind of adds a bit more nuance to it though. And that is that if you change the way you look at things, then the things that you look at change. I always love that saying because it's so true. And I think that mindset is one of those things that I work with every single client on, whether that's in the life coaching space or the business coaching space, because it's so powerful that if we can start to look at the things that we look at differently, if we can change our perspective, if we can see it in a different light, if we can add a layer of more self-awareness around something, then that changes the things that we look at. Yeah. So it changes our perspective. It changes our relationship with them. And maybe it takes away some of the emotional charge around it or something similar for you. And so I think if we're wanting something to be different, then yes, we need to be different. So really taking that radical responsibility of ourselves and how we're showing up and what we're doing and achieving and creating, or the situations and environments and people that we're putting ourselves in and around. But also sometimes there's an element of, that's external to us, or we don't have control over these things. And so if we're looking at these things and then we're wanting them to be different, or we're not liking our relationship to them or our connection to them in some way, then how can we start to shift our perspective? How can we start to do the inner work around that to see it in a different light? or to, see gratitude and appreciation for those things, even the most challenging things, even the hard times. Because if we can shift our perspective, if we can shift our energetic state or relationship with them, then the things that we look at then change. Yeah. So I think it's really nice to have a think about almost looking at it with both of these quotes in mind, about taking radical responsibility for changing, for growing, for doing the inner work, for creating the change that we want in our lives, and doing the internal work in a really empowering way. But in also the things that we can't control, the things that aren't our responsibility, the other things that perhaps aren't sitting well with us, then how can we change our perspective about that? How can we change our relationship to that? How can we do some of the emotional release work to see it in a different light so it doesn't have the same charge over us, and it will start to change the thing that we're actually looking at if we change how we see it, how we view it, our perspective. Yeah. I hope that helps. Hope that makes sense. Those are my quotes and my inspiration today. And I think that could be a whole podcast episode in and of itself, but I think it relates to so much of what we're going to be talking about today and in the next few episodes to come as well. Now, before we dive into the episode today, I would love to let you know, if you want to be coached by me in 2025, now is the time to reach out and act on that. I've got limited spots for one-to-one coaching for both life coaching and business coaching. So that could be completely separate. It could be just life coaching if you don't have a business and you're really wanting to work on your mindset, your relationship with your inner self, your authenticity, feeling so self-confident, believing and worthy in yourself. And if you're wanting to die down your inner critic, or the mindset stuff, or the comparisonitis, the people pleasing, all of that stuff, that is absolutely for you. Or if you have your own business, if you're a coach, a consultant, if you are a healer, a space holder, someone in that realm, you're a heart-centered business owner and you want to grow your impact this year and do it in a really soulful, aligned and authentic way, then one-to-one business coaching is absolutely for you. Or it could be a blend of the two as well. So these are 3-month coaching series, one-to-one, you and I on Zoom. We catch up every fortnight and the results are so incredible. Now there's limited spots to start with me in mid-January 2025. So if you're interested, don't delay, reach out. Would love to hear from you. And we can also book a free discovery call where we can just jump on Zoom, get to know each other. You can ask any questions at all and see if this is the right thing for you, and it's going to be really supportive for you and your goals and intentions for the new year. So really excited for that. So please don't delay. Would love to support you. Alrighty, so today's episode, this conversation and this episode is one to save, to come back to, and to do at a time that feels right and good for you. But what I would say is make sure you do it because I really believe that the secret to winning this year, the secret to rounding out this year in a really beautiful way for yourself, is to pause and reflect and do some of this beautiful journaling work that I'm going to guide you through in a moment, because then you can take the gold from this year. No matter what has been thrown your way this year, no matter what has happened, no matter what challenges you've been navigating, no matter the wins, the celebrations, the highs, the lows, the achievements, or the pivots, the turns, no matter what it is, no matter what's happened this year, there is so much gold and wisdom to take from this. Regardless of if you see it in a positive way or in a negative way, regardless, there's so much to take from this year. And I think you're giving yourself such a gift to do this process. So if you can give yourself that gift at some point in time over the next couple of weeks, or maybe it's when you're away on holiday, when you've stopped work for the year, or you're lying on the beach, or you've got a little bit more space and time, or maybe hubby's home and can have the kids for a little bit so you can have some quiet alone time. Carve out a little bit of this time to pause and reflect and take stock of what it's been this year for you. And I always love doing this process for myself, and I'm about to do it for myself soon. And I think I might share some of my reflections and lessons in next week's episode. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. Let me know. But I think it's such a beautiful process. There's always a part of me, and I even sense this within myself, to be totally honest right now. I'm like, I don't have the time to stop and reflect. Like, this is a really busy time of year. This is what ego and inner critic says. Or like, I just want to get onto the goal setting. I want to get onto the new year. I want to get onto change and what's to come and all of these sorts of things. But you are doing yourself a disservice. You are missing out on so much wisdom and gold. And yeah, you're missing out on so much if you don't do the reflection first. So if you were to just jump into the goal setting, which I have done prior to, many years ago, prior to coaching and things like that, I would never have reflected. I would never have journaled. I would never have celebrated myself and taken the lessons from this year. Would never have done that for myself. But what I know to be true from doing it for myself many, many years now, and also guiding through so many clients through this process in the life coaching space, in the business coaching space, that it is so, so empowering. And it's really cool. It's a really cool process. So let's just say that we are going to do it, that you're going to carve out the space and time. You're going to find, maybe it's half an hour, maybe it's an hour to sit down and do this beautiful reflection. Now, a few tips before we get going. I reckon it's always wonderful to have some quiet alone time, book it in, find some space and time, if you're a parent, talk to your hubby or talk to your partner or talk to some caregivers that can support you with this so you can have some alone time. Maybe it's setting the scene and the environment for yourself to really connect in and just letting go of your current life and world and the external world and just tuning into your true self. Maybe that's having some beautiful music playing in the background. Maybe it's pouring yourself a cup of tea or cacao or a wine or your favorite beverage. Maybe it's lighting a candle, having your crystals close by. Maybe it's getting all warm and cozy or finding your favorite spot or your favorite chair and allowing yourself just to really be there and give back to yourself. So really setting the scene and creating that beautiful intention for yourself and using those external things to support yourself with that as well. So setting the scene is first and foremost. And I think the other thing I would just share before we dive into the specific questions that I'm going to guide you through next is to give yourself permission to be really honest with yourself. To give yourself permission to be really honest with yourself. I was voice noting one of my girlfriends recently. She's also a coach I've met online, but she's a gorgeous dear friend of mine now. And we voice note from time to time. And we were talking about some of the things that we've been navigating and just updating each other and talking and catching up as friends. And obviously we have really big, deep and meaningful conversations, which I love and I'm here for. And one of the things that she shared with me, she shared that it can be really challenging and confronting to be really, really honest with yourself. But it is such a gift. It is so important to do so. And I totally agreed with her. And I see this in clients as well, in coaching calls. It's really challenging to be really honest with yourself and to say what you really feel or to acknowledge that niggle or that nudge or that intuitive feeling that you're feeling that you've kind of been pushing down and ignoring for a while, but maybe you really need to acknowledge and own. Like, it's really challenging to be honest with yourself, but honestly, you're going to give yourself the greatest gift if you do. Because no matter what comes up, which is often the fear around it, is like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do if I really share what I mean, or if I be really honest with myself, what's going to come up here? And what I would say is that you can trust yourself here. That you can trust yourself and reach out anytime. I'm here to support you with this as well. Please know that my DMs are open on Instagram, or pop a message here in the description below if you're watching over on YouTube, or flick me an email if you're on my email list. I would love that so much. And know that I'm here to support you and hold you through this process as well. So being really honest with yourself when you go through these questions and getting it all down on paper. No one needs to read this. You don't need to share this with anyone if you don't want to. But I think it can be a really beautiful, empowering process to do. Okay, are you ready? We're going to go into the questions. And this is where you might want to come back to this point and hit play again or go through this and pause, and maybe you want to just listen to this episode or watch this episode while you do this process. So I hope this is a really great way to do it, and you can, feel free to pause and go through these questions in your own time. Okay, so the first question is a bit of a review. What has this year been about for you? What has 2024 been about for you? And for this question in particular, you might like to go over And even going, like jogging your memory, like going back in your calendar or your diary, or going back in your photos on your phone and thinking about, what was this year about? What was I doing back in January, February, March in that first quarter? What was happening? What was I navigating? How was I feeling? What, yeah, what were some of the things that I was going through? What are some of the things that I've created and achieved and experienced this year? So just going through that systematically, jogging your memory by your calendar or your photos, that can be a really great way to think back and review the year. So easy to forget what we were doing back in January, February, March, right? Go back and look over those things again for yourself. And if you are a person that likes to think about this a little bit more, like in different areas of your life and be a little bit more structured in this, you might like to also review different areas of your life. So, for example, what was this year about in terms of your relationships, with your romantic relationship, or your friendships, your connections, your community? You might like to think about, what was this year about in terms of your health and your well-being? You might like to think about it with your connection to yourself or spirituality. What's this year been about there? It could be about in different areas like your work or your business. It could be in terms of your family life, your home life. So you could look at this in different ways. What has this year been about, and kind of go through systematically in terms of month by month and jog your memory there. And also, what has this been about in terms of those different areas of your life? What have you achieved? What have you experienced? What have you created this year? Okay, question number 2. What am I most proud of? What are you most proud of about this year, 2024? What are you most proud of? So feel free to pause and stop this video or this podcast episode as you're going through, to allow yourself to write and journal, and yeah, feel free to just write as much as you possibly want to. So the third question is, what were some of the challenges that you navigated this year? What were some of those challenging moments? What were some of the things that you were navigating this year? And then the fourth question, which can flow on for the previous one if you want to, but can also be a standalone question, is, what have been your greatest lessons? What have you learnt about yourself this year? Or what have you learnt in general? What have been some of your greatest lessons? So it could be directly from those challenges. What have you learnt from that? What's come of those challenges and situations? How have you grown through that? But it can also be, what have been some of your greatest lessons this year? What have you learned? What have been some of those big things of like, yeah, that was a big moment. That was a big lesson that I've learned and implemented and integrated into myself now. The fifth question is, what am I grateful for? Love for you to list out so many things here. Bullet point them. What are you grateful for? What are you most grateful for this year? Number 6 is, what served me really well this year? What served and supported you really well this year? So this could be a mindset. This could be a habit or a ritual or a practice that's been really supportive for you this year. This could be maybe a structure or routine that's been really, really supportive for you. Or it could be a friendship, a connection, a coach, a support person who's been really supportive for you this year. So what served you really well? What's been really supportive for you? And just think about that in broad terms, and think about habits, mindsets, behaviors, rituals, routines, connections, people, support. What's been really supportive for you this year? And an extension or flow on from that question is, what are the things that you want to bring forward into 2025? So of those things that have been really supportive for you, that's really served you, what do you want to bring forward with you into the new year? And the next question is the opposite of that. So what hasn't served or supported you really well this year? What hasn't supported you? What hasn't served you? And what would you like to let go of or release that you no longer want to bring into 2025? And again, that could be habits, behaviors, it could be routines, it could be mindsets, it could be limiting beliefs, it could be certain connections or groups or environments. It could be lots of different things. So, what are the things that haven't served you or supported you well this year that you'd like to let go of and not bring into the new year? Again, being really honest with yourself. And of course, if you are a fan of setting a word for the year, so if you did this process at the start of the year and you created or felt into, decided on a word for the year, what was that word for you this year? And review that. How was that manifested? How has that played out? How does that feel now? Do you feel like you fully nailed it? Like, oh my goodness, yes, that year was so much about that thing. Or maybe it was like, actually, I kind of nailed that word in the first couple of months of the year. And actually something that actually really another thing, another theme or something that actually came through for me even more so was this other word or this other thing. I was chatting with one of my mastermind girls yesterday about this, and she shared that she nailed that first word for herself earlier on in the year, and it was absolutely important for her and definitely her word. However, then this other word was coming through, and this other thing that she's been navigating and growing into, feeling into, creating more of. And yeah, it's so beautiful to see. So maybe there's something else that came through for you that you had perhaps no intention of doing or feeling into. It wasn't necessarily your word for the year, but something really came through and it was a really beautiful lesson or something that you've really taken with you or learned or created more of for yourself. So just really reviewing your word. What was that for this year if you had one? Or even if you didn't have one at the start of the year, if you were to look back over this year, what has it really been about? If you were to take that first question that I shared with you about what is this year about, come sort of everything that you've journaled through so far in this journaling process, if there was a word or a theme or something that really came through for you, what would it be for this year? I find that a really interesting one. I'm so curious to hear. If anyone's open to sharing, would love to hear. Love, love, love to hear. Send me a message or pop them in the comments below. And then lastly, we need to celebrate you so, so, so much. You need to celebrate yourself because no matter what happened or what didn't happen, no matter what came to be, what didn't, no matter how you're feeling about this year, no matter all of the challenges or the wobbles or all of the things that you created this year, no matter what it is, you deserve to feel really proud of yourself. You deserve to celebrate yourself and really recognize yourself. And even the act of doing this journaling and this beautiful process for yourself is an act of honoring your true self and honoring yourself. But I would love for you to really go big on that and celebrate yourself so much. So what are some of the things that you're celebrating this year? Your growth journey, the lessons, the up levels, the pivots, the twists, how you've navigated challenging times, difficult conversations, how you've navigated the unknown and letting go of control or people pleasing or building more inner confidence and belief or some incredible business wins, maybe even, sometimes it's even the smallest internal shifts or energetic upgrades and shifts within yourself that can be sometimes the most game-changing, most powerful, the things that you're most proud of. So really writing down all of the things that you want to really acknowledge yourself for this year and really celebrate yourself for this year. Would love for you to write down everything. Make a big, big list. And then lastly, as a follow-on for that, how are you really going to honor and acknowledge yourself and celebrate yourself even further? Is there something that you want to do? Is there a little gift or a little experience or something that you want to do? Take yourself somewhere. Maybe it's even just placing your hands on your heart right now, smiling and feeling so much gratitude and so much love and respect and just really honoring yourself for showing up so beautifully this year. No matter what it was, no matter what happened or didn't happen, it's so important that you celebrate and honor yourself for that. You deserve that. You're worthy of that. So, my loves, that is my reflective process. It's literally the questions that I'm going to be asking myself and journaling out in a really short time. Really excited to go through that now, even more so sharing this podcast with you all. And I think this is such a gift to give yourself, to really reflect, pause, take stock, learn the lessons, acknowledge yourself, celebrate yourself, no matter what it is, no matter what happened or didn't happen. This is so important to do so. And you're worthy of that. And so I would love for you to gift yourself this gift and really win the end of this year. And it's going to support you so much into the new year as well. I'm going to do another separate episode on goal setting, on intention setting, on really feeling into what next year is going to be about for you. Would love to support you with that too. But this is the first one. This is the first step. And do this first. Do this first. It's such a gift to give yourself. So my loves, would love to hear your feedback. Would love to hear how this landed for you, how you go with your journaling practice. It's such a wonderful thing to do. So give yourself this gift, create some space and time, even if it's just half an hour or so. It'd be so, so wonderful to do that for yourself. So my loves, I will leave it there. Final reminder though, we are filling up my spaces for one-to-one coaching next year. So starting mid-January 2025, I have limited spots for one-to-one life coaching or one-to-one business coaching. It could be either or a blend. Depending on where you're at and if you have a business or not. So would love to support you with that. If you are interested, please reach out, send me an email or book yourself a free call. We can jump on Zoom, get to know each other, talk a bit more about it and see if it's the right thing for you that's going to really support you into 2025. Would love that so much. So yeah, just a reminder to make sure you act on that one. I can't wait for it. And I will see you all really soon, celebrating you so much. And you're incredible. You're incredible. You did it, guys. We're only a couple more weeks of the year, celebrating you heaps. And yeah, I can't wait for all the goodness to come.